Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into what I think is one of the absolute most fascinating and immediately applicable connections in human biology. We're talking about the intricate link between what's on our plates and what's happening inside our heads. You know, we so often think about food purely in terms of physical fitness, right? Building muscle, hitting personal records at the gym, or managing weight. But the reality? The reality is that literally every single bite you take has a profound impact on your cognitive function, your emotional resilience, and your overall mental well-being.
Get this, your brain weighs only a tiny, tiny fraction of your total body weight, usually around 2%. 2%. Yet it is an absolute energy hog. It burns through a massive amount of the energy your body produces every single day just to keep you thinking, breathing, and, well, functioning. So here's the multi-million-dollar question we really have to ask ourselves. What actually happens to this incredibly demanding organ when the precise nutrients it desperately depends on are simply missing? What happens when we don't give it what it needs? Let's find out.
Okay, let's look at our roadmap for today. We're going to cover fueling the brain, the key nutrients for mental health, the gut-brain axis, how blood sugar affects mood, the sleep and stress cycle, and finally, we'll wrap up by busting some really common myths.
All right, starting right off with Section 1, Fueling the Brain.
At its absolute core, your brain requires a constant, steady supply of energy just to run its background processes. The primary source of this energy? It's glucose, which we get from the carbohydrates we eat. But hey, it's not just about energy, it's also about the environment. Proper hydration is absolutely essential. I mean, even a slight drop in hydration can lead to a really noticeable decrease in your cognitive speed. The best way to visualize this is to think of the brain like a top-tier, high-performance gaming computer. You wouldn't plug a machine like that into a faulty power strip and expect it to run flawlessly, right? It needs clean energy, it needs the right physical materials to maintain the hardware, and a stable, temperature-controlled environment. When your brain gets inadequate nutrition, you experience literal system lag. We're talking tiredness, brain fog, and just struggling to concentrate. Now, let me be incredibly clear here. Nutrition is a huge factor in mental health, for sure, but it is just one piece of the puzzle, right alongside genetics, your environment, and overall lifestyle.
Moving right along to Section 2, Nutrients for Mental Health.
So if food is our power source, these specific micronutrients are the vital hardware updates that our operating system totally depends on. And we aren't just listing healthy foods here, we're looking at the actual foundational building blocks of your cognition. Take omega-3 fatty acids, for example. These are literally used to build and maintain the physical structure of your brain and nervous system. Then you have B vitamins. These are the key workers in energy metabolism. Without them, that glucose we just talked about, it can't even be utilized efficiently. Iron is absolutely crucial for transporting oxygen to your brain cells, so when your iron is low, boom, fatigue and poor concentration hit almost immediately. Magnesium acts as this amazing calming agent for nerve and muscle function, and vitamin D has a massive systemic impact on your overall neurological health. But a quick caveat. While all of these are essential for normal function, eating, say, a handful of walnuts isn't a clinical treatment for something like an anxiety disorder. These nutrients provide the foundation. They're the building blocks, not necessarily the cure.
Next up, Section 3, the gut-brain axis. For the longest time, we treated the gut and the brain as two completely separate things. But actually, they are intimately connected. They are constantly chatting back and forth through a massive biological superhighway of nerves, specifically the vagus nerve. This continuous, incredibly complex two-way communication network is what we call the gut-brain axis. And what's truly mind-blowing in recent research is the role of the gut microbiome. We are talking about trillions, yes with a T, trillions of bacteria living right now in your digestive tract. The foods we eat dictate the environment of that microbiome. So when we feed our gut well, it literally sends positive signals back up to the brain. However, we do have to navigate the hype carefully here. It is a multi-pathway relationship. Your gut definitely influences your mood, but it doesn't unilaterally control your mental health.
All right, Section 4, blood sugar and mood. This part perfectly bridges the gap between long-term brain health and how you feel right this very second. The timing, and especially the composition of our meals, directly dictates our immediate energy and concentration levels. If you eat a sugary snack totally on its own, you flood your system with glucose. Sure, that gives your brain a rapid, intense spike in energy, but it's followed inevitably by a really sharp, exhausting crash. And here's the kicker. This crash is often interpreted by your brain as a stressor, which leads to irritability and brain fog. But
Pair that same sugar with a complex carb, some protein, a healthy fat or fiber, like say, grabbing an apple and pairing it with a handful of almonds, and you completely change the game. You slow down the absorption of that sugar into the bloodstream. This creates a really stable, sustained release of energy. You're effectively providing a smooth, reliable power current to your brain instead of a volatile power surge.
Now for Section 5, sleep and stress.
It's fascinating how our daytime habits so heavily dictate our nighttime recovery through this almost virtuous biological cycle. Think about it. It all starts with proper nutrition, which naturally regulates and sustains your energy throughout the day. Having that stable energy, along with mindful habits like, cutting off caffeine late in the day or reducing excessive alcohol, creates the exact conditions your body needs for deep, restorative sleep. And then that quality sleep directly improves your mood the next morning, which in turn dictates your overall daily function and cognitive performance. It's a loop. If you break the chain at the nutrition level, the downstream effects inevitably disrupt your sleep and your ability to manage stress. The entire biological system is just completely, beautifully interconnected.
Moving to Section 6, Common Myths. Let's debug the software a bit.
In the world of nutrition and mental health, there are some incredibly common and sometimes, quite frankly, dangerous misconceptions that we really need to debug right now. Let's systematically break these down. Myth number 1. Eating one specific superfood is going to dramatically improve your mental health. Nope, false. Absolutely no single food can replace the benefits of a consistently balanced dietary pattern. Myth 2. If you're depressed, you just need to change your diet. Now, this is a really harmful oversimplification. Clinical mental health conditions like depression and anxiety are incredibly complex. They involve genetics, past trauma, your environment, and complex neurochemistry. They require professional assessment and comprehensive treatment. Food alone is simply not a cure. And finally, myth 3. Supplements are always better than real food. While supplements absolutely have their place for specific deficiencies for sure, they just cannot replicate the complex matrix of nutrients, fibers, and enzymes that you get naturally from whole foods.
Finally, let's look at Section 7, building a brain plate.
So, the crucial point is, how do we actually apply this wealth of biological information to our daily lives without completely overcomplicating things? Well, the best daily framework is actually really simple. Aim for variety and balance. You really don't need to chase perfection here or lock yourself into an overly restrictive diet. Just picture your plate. Roughly 40% of it should be colorful vegetables and fruits. These are the guys packed with all those essential vitamins and antioxidants. Then, about 25% should be complex whole grains for that nice steady glucose supply we talked about. Another 25% goes to protein-rich foods, which provide the exact amino acids your brain uses to build neurotransmitters. And then you round the whole thing out with a healthy 10% of fats, like those vital omega-3s, alongside plenty of water. A varied eating pattern matters so much more than obsessing over any single perfect meal.
I want to leave you with a fantastic summary quote that I think beautifully captures the nuance of everything we've explored today. Food is not a cure for every mental health problem, but good nutrition gives the brain the resources it needs to function at its best. Good nutrition doesn't magically erase the complexities of human mental health, but it is an undeniable foundational tool that empowers your brain to operate at its absolute peak capacity. So here is my final thought for you to ponder today. If your brain consumes a massive 20% of your body's entire energy supply just to generate every single thought, emotion, and memory you have, are you feeding it premium fuel, or are you expecting it to run on empty? Let us know what your next nutritional upgrade is going to be in the comments below. And while you're down there, tell us what you'd like us to unpack next on The Explainer. Stay curious, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.